All right, so in this video, I'm going to do a little refresher slash intro, depending on if you have any experience with ES module syntax, import and exports, and the various ways of doing so. So if you're already familiar with that, you probably don't need to watch this, but let's go ahead and dive into it. Currently, we are using what's called named exports or named imports, where we are individually exporting, in this case, a function, but we could export really anything. I could export a class. I could even export this const called pi, set it equal to 3.14. I'm exporting it by name. And then if I want to use it in any other file, I can't just import pi like this. Instead, I have to use these curly braces, and might as well just use what we already have up top and just add in pi. So each one of these names is going to be looked for inside this utils file, and if I have something that's incorrect, TypeScript at least will warn me and say there's no exported member in that module called PDI. So TypeScript's looking out for us and trying to find that. And it does find it, it's just we're not using it, but we could console.log pi. Okay, so that's named exports. You export individual things just on their own. You can have as many as you want in a file. And then we import them, one or all if we want them, from this other module. But another thing we can do is create a default export using the export default keyword. And we can only have one of these per file or per module. And when we have something as the default export, it means when we import it, we don't have to use a named import. So let me do a different example. I don't think it makes sense to have a default export in this file, but maybe I have some class that I'm defining called user.ts. And in this class called user, let's just keep it super simple. We've got a public username that's a string, public email that's a string, and let's just leave it at that. And maybe add in a greet method. Or log out, sure. Okay, and log out, we just console.log, and then we'll do, I don't know, what should we do? This dot username logs out. All right, so I have this class user, and technically right now, it's not a module, it's just a regular old file or script. Everything's in the global space, but I'm going to export it. But instead of exporting it this way, if this is the only thing in this file, or the only thing that I want to be exported, or it's the one main thing I want to be exported, I can export default. So if I do an export default, now when I import it, I can simply import user from, and then it's /user.js. I don't have to specify the name. This doesn't even have to match. This can be whatever I want, thingy. And whatever this name is, it will hold the default export, which in our case is this class. So this is just acting as a container for the default export. Import thingy from user.js. I think I would probably just go with user though. So if you prefer to do it this way, you have one default thing. It's basically if no name is given, if you don't use named imports, if you're only providing a single value that you are importing, then JavaScript will give you the default export from that module. But we can also mix and match. So maybe in my user file, I don't know, I have some other thing called user helper, which is a function. Export user helper, and it just console.logs, I don't know, user helper. It doesn't make any sense. So I can export this function. So it's not a default export. This is the default. This is just a named export. So in order to import this, I still have to call it out. And I could do this on a second line, import user helper from /user.js. And that's fine. I can now call user helper, and that works. But if I don't want to do that, I can just combine the two and say import user, comma, and then use the named import user helper from this file. So this gives me the default export, whatever that is, will be stuffed in there. I can give it any name. But these have to match. This name has to match whatever name was exported from this particular module. But if I want to change these, I can actually change the names as well. Let's say that I already have a variable in here. I have something called sample. For whatever reason, I want to use my own thing called sample. Const sample equals, wait, is it Istanbul or Constantple? It's a joke there, constant, no, never mind. Anyway, I've got my sample variable and it's set to some number, whatever, I don't know why, but that's what I've got. So I am going to run into trouble if I'm trying to import something called sample, and that's the name that it's exported under. So then I could come in and actually give it a new name as, and then I could call this random sample or something like that. So I still have to have that exact match so that the TypeScript/JavaScript knows what I'm referring to. I'm saying go and find in this utils module the exported thing, whatever it is, in this case a function called sample, and then rename it in this file as random sample. So I believe that's everything there is to show. I should just prove. Now I can call random sample. TypeScript knows it's the same function. It's a generic function, and it's going to return a number if we give it an array of numbers. Okay, so there's a lot there. And this, so far, everything we've seen is identical to ES modules. I mean, it is the same concept. Technically, it's in TypeScript. But confusingly enough, there are some tiny differences, some extra little syntax we can use in TypeScript that I'm going to show in the next video.